Okay, my friends, another shocker du jour. I've been looking through the Gnostic texts and all the ancient texts that I can sort of find, Ovid, Hesiod, Plato, Apollodorus, and I'm finding a lot of validity there. And every single culture on the face of this planet had dragons, they had monsters, they had giants, they had a great flood, they had an eternity, they had gods, they had a rebellion, they had battles in the heavens. 100%. I'm not talking about one here, one there. 100%. That's a pretty unusual coincidence. So now I'm looking through the Gnostic texts. And I'm thinking to myself, this is text of things that people don't know about. This is the gospel of truth. All right, now, how much did they know about the truth? Did they really have the truth? They have so many texts in this Gnostic library, it's amazing, and they were hidden because they were supposed to be destroyed. They were stashed away, and they were found in 1945, as well as the Dead Sea Scrolls. So this shed a whole new light on early Christianity. These words were written by Jesus Christ while he was alive, walking down and giving sermons and doing all the things he did. And they're very mysterious. And he, apparently somewhere in here, I can't remember where it said, I think it was here, that he only taught his disciples up to the first mysteries, or up to the lower mysteries. There was many more mysteries above that he didn't teach them because they just couldn't handle it, probably. If you couldn't have any evidence to support the things that I'm saying, if I didn't have the evidence, people would just say the guy's nuts, he's insane. And they say it anyway, it doesn't matter. Evidence means nothing anymore. I'm going to show you what means nothing. Look at this. This is Quetzalcoatl. He's right here on the East Coast. And it's so monstrous that it affects the weather. Oh, Roger, there he goes. He's a nutcase. Well, let's just look at Quetzalcoatl. What does he look like? Hold on. Let's just slow down. Take it easy. Don't go nuts. Take your time. See what I show you. Then insult me. All right, hold on. All right, don't forget now. We're looking for truth. Now, did Jesus teach his disciples all the way up to the levels of truth that would include these gigantic monsters, Typhon and Quetzalcoatl and all this stuff? This is a gigantic serpent, feathered serpent, and he's eating gigantic giants. And he is on the East Coast of the United States. He runs up the whole East Coast. Now remember the headdress, all the feathers on the headdress. Remember the snaky-looking body that goes all the way up, all the fluted feathers at the end. Remember the beards. All right, so you got the lay of the land here, and I mean the lay of the land. Let's see what he looks like on Google Earth. Okay, take your time, slowly focus in. You see the difference in color here? You see how green this is, and how green it is right up in here, and how green it is up here. They call them the Green Mountains. Well, don't forget what Quetzalcoatl looked like. And he had a couple of beards coming down here, remember? And he had that head coming around, snaking right up here. That's his body. That's his shoulder. And all the way up to the end, remember he had all those fluty green feathers up at the end? Something like this. Fluty green feathers. These are the Green Mountains. Feathers, they sell ground up feather meal to make plants grow extremely green, and it works very well. This is not just rifting and pushing and shoving. This is feathers. And they come, twist right up here. His whole body is just loaded with them. And you come all the way back to his headdress, which is right up here. And the skin on his head was a little different than the rest is run off of bloody stuff and feathers. And these are feathers up here too. That was his headdress, remember? And if you look, coming right off a little rock, coming right out of his headdress is feathers. Here's a couple good ones right here. Let's settle in for a second. You can see these are actual feathers. Just like that. And you know, it's going to take a second for it to home in, but there it is right there. You see that? That's this. Nobody came out and flattened that out. That's this right here. These are feathers. And there's a bunch of them. There's not just one. There's another one right here. It's the exact same text. Look. That's not an accident. That's not an accident. It's time we stopped and just say, look, it's time not to be silly anymore. This is dragged on for 15 years. It's absolute insanity. The people we trusted for truth are just denying reality. They're just absolutely denying it now. There is no denying this anymore. Stop. Stop this nonsense, insanity of teaching kids that they have to repeat what they're told to say. They know it's not true. You know it's not true. Enough. 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 You see this? I'm pretty sure this has something to do with Tornado Alley. This is where his feathers are, right up here, coming right out of Little Rock area. See, Little Rock is where the tip of his head is. And this is where Tornado Alley is. I don't know if it's because of rippling over the feathers or not. I don't know. But I could see where it might have an impact, and there he is right there, exact spot of Tornado Alley. All right, I've spoken about this minimum 500 times. I realized 10 years ago this was a gigantic dragon all the way across North Africa attacking this gigantic fish. And as I continued the research, I realized that ancient Apollodorus had this exact same story. This is Typhon. This is his head. Here's his red flared eye. And this is all the scales on his dragon scaled throat, called the Drach, Dragon River Basin. And these are all his scales on his scaled dragon throat. And they're all hinged so that he could do this with it instead of having it so he could only do that. They have to have hinges, which they do. You see, a hinge, a hinge, a hinge, a hinge, a hinge. In between, it's just all nothing but dragon scales to protect his dragon throat. However, his dragon throat was cut by Zeus with his great and mighty sword. Cut right across it. And he bled out in the desert. That's the red blood and that's the vein blood. Artery, vein. All of this stuff back up here is just runoff of bodily fluids, what they call effluent. Just lymph fluid, really. This is actual blood. And the red and the black running off down here. And his body runs all the way across North Africa, from here over to here. And you can see more dragon scales over here, where he got slashed. I believe he got slashed right here, too. And this is running off blood right in this area. You have to let it settle in for a minute. You see? I think he got slashed right here, because I know there's a bunch of spots, I think maybe even here, that he got whacked. And that's blood running out of there. And these are nothing more than dragon scales running all the way down further and further and further. And he had a fluted tail at the end. He had an actual feathered tip. Out here he had feathers. You can come and look at this. I've shown this hundreds of times. And he's attacking this giant fish. And in Apollodorus, it talks about the gods changing themselves into animals to try to get away from Typhon, and Ares changed into a fish and was lured by Pan, lured by telling Typhon to come out for a banquet of fish. And they both died here on the spot. Their bodies are here, and they have to have some special stuff going on with their spirits, because I think maybe they can leave their bodies and go somewhere. I don't know. I have no idea. If they're immortal, gods are supposed to be immortal, and it's there. I don't know. Aries, that's Aries. Now, as far as the eye of the Sahara goes, I've shown that is really an actual eye. You see these two things coming around here? That's where the nerves go to the optic nerve. These are nerves. You see up there? You see all of these? These are abrupt transitions of actual optic nerves. And that right there is the optic nerve web. And it's thick. So I've shown you the optic nerve. And they're all over the place. That's an optic nerve there too. This is all optic nerves. All coming off of this main stalk up to the optic nerves. And this is the other side, same thing here too. And between the two of them, they circle the eyeball. And all of this stuff is exactly identical to what's in, I mean, it's so exact, it's just absolutely unbelievably exact. They have all these webs. They can pull the lens in. And I think that's the very tip of the lens here got ripped off of that spot. But this is, look at, this is not an accident. And if you look at it anatomically, this is exactly what you get. You get the nerves coming up to the optic nerve. These are the fibers. They come up right up to the optic nerve. And they're everywhere. You see that? That's exactly what an eye, exactly. There's no difference whatsoever. These creatures were gigantic. They were everywhere. There was giants in the earth in those days. And then after that, when the sons of God went into the daughters of man, there was more giants. These things here were the titans. These were the titans and the gods. These were not just the little giants. The little giants were only a couple hundred, few miles tall. Maybe a little higher than that. Maybe even 100 miles tall. This thing is 1,200 miles long. 1,200 miles long. That's not even the longest one. But this one was written about in Apollodorus. So let's go back to the Gospel of Truth and see what did they know about truth. Okay, so let's start with, this is the Nag Hammadi text, the Gospel of Truth. And everything that is in bold is the text that was in the original text. Headings in bold type have been added to the text to clarify sort of that block. All right, so they're saying, joy to those who know the Father. That's not written in the text. That's, somebody put that on there. It says, the gospel of truth is joy for those who have received from the Father of truth the grace of knowing him by the power of the Word, who has come from the fullness and who is in the thought and the mind of the Father. This is pretty confusing stuff. This is the one who is called the Savior, since that is the name of the work that he must do for the redemption of those who have not known the Father. For the name of the gospel is a revelation of hope, since that is the discovery of those who seek him, because the realm of all sought him from whom it came. You see, all was inside of him, that illimitable, inconceivable one who is better than every thought. So this apparently is the Father who is better than anything. I mean, he made everything, so he's got to be above everything, obviously. Now, ignorance of the Father brings error. That's another added statement. Now, it says, ignorance of the Father brought about terror and fear. All right, so the ignorance of the Father brought about terror and fear. And terror became dense like a fog, so no one was able to see. Because of this, error became strong, because you couldn't see. You were too scared to see. And that's what I'm finding. But she worked on her material substance vainly. Now that must be Sophia, because she did not know the truth. She assumed a fashioned figure while she was preparing in power and in beauty, the substitute for truth. I believe they're talking about Sophia, who created this realm wrongly. She, apparently to the Gnostics, Sophia, Pistis Sophia, and this is off of my opinion. I don't know if it's exactly what they're saying, and I don't know if it's right or wrong, or if I'm even saying it the way they're saying it in the Gnostics. But I believe Pistis Sophia is what they said, created this realm without the consent of her partner, and she made it a disaster. And the head being took over thinking he was the best there ever was, and corrupted everything and made everything a disaster. So, ignorance of the Father brings error. All right. Let's go back to starting back here again. Ignorance of the Father brought about terror and fear. Now, I have not really read this fully or understood it fully. A little clip here, a clip there, but this is basically new to me as well as it probably is to you. But they're saying the ignorance of the Father, who is God, brought about terror and fear, and terror became dense like a fog. They just couldn't understand what they were seeing. And she worked on her material substance vainly, Pistis Sophia, and assumed a fashioned figure while she was preparing in power and in beauty, the substitute for truth, something fake. Now, this then was not a humiliation for the illimitable, inconceivable one, for they were as nothing. This terror and this forgetfulness and this figure of falsehood, whereas established truth is unchanging, unperturbed, and completely beautiful. For this reason, do not take error too seriously. So she made this realm in error, basically. Since error had no root, she was in a fog regarding the Father. She was preparing works and forgetfulness and fears in order by these means to beguile those of the middle, which is probably us, to make them captive. The forgetfulness of error was not revealed. It did not become light beside the Father. There's light again. Forgetfulness did not exist with the Father, although it existed because of him. What exists in him is knowledge, all right, which was revealed so that forgetfulness might be destroyed and that the Father might be known. Right now we have forgetfulness, and Velikovsky had the same issue. It was forgetfulness. He didn't have the material evidence I have. So now there should be no reason for this to be dismissed the way it has been. All right? We need knowledge. Forgetfulness did not exist with the Father. God does not, didn't he forget? He didn't forget all this stuff. Although it existed because of him. All right? Because he gave us the ability to remember or forget, and we just decided nonsense with that. What exists in him is knowledge, which was revealed so that forgetfulness might be destroyed and that the Father might be known. We should know and understand now that God is real. Jesus was a real deal as far as I'm concerned. Forgetfulness existed because the Father was not known. If the Father comes to be known, from that moment on, forgetfulness will cease to exist. From that moment on, that's the moment of forgiveness for me. All right, now we come to Jesus is the fruit of knowledge. Again, an added text. This is the gospel of him who they seek. which he has revealed to the perfect through the mercies of the Father as the hidden mystery, Jesus the Anointed. There was hidden mysteries. Through him he enlightened those who were in darkness because of forgetfulness. He enlightened them and gave them a path. And that path is the truth, and he taught them. For this reason error was angry with him. So she persecuted him. She was distressed by him. She didn't want the truth out. And she made powerless. And she was made powerless because he exposed her. He was nailed to a tree, basically to the cross. He became a fruit of the knowledge of the Father. He did not, however, destroy them because they ate of it. He rather caused those who ate of it to be joyful because of this discovery. And as for him, he found them in himself, and they found him in themselves, that illimitable, inconceivable one, that perfect Father who made all, in whom the realm of all is, and whom the realm of all lacks, since he retained in himself their perfection, which he had not given to all. So perfection you don't get. All right, the Father was not jealous. What jealousy indeed is there between him and his members? For even if the eternal being had received their perfection, they would not have been able to approach the perfection of the Father. In other words, he couldn't be overthrown, because he retained their perfection in himself, giving it to them as a way to return to him and as a knowledge unique in perfection. He is the one who set all in order, and in whom all exists and whom all lacked, as one of whom some have no knowledge. All right, as one of whom some have no knowledge. He wants them to know him and love him. What did they lack, if not the knowledge of the Father? They just didn't, they lacked it because they didn't believe it. They just thought it was too much for them to accept. Now here again, Jesus as a quiet guide, again added text. All right, Jesus became the guide. He became a guide, quiet and in leisure. In the middle of a school, he came and spoke the word as a teacher. Those who were wise in their own estimation came to put him to the test, but he discredited them as empty-headed people. They hated him because they really were not wise. After all these came also the little children, those who possessed the knowledge of the Father. When they became strong, they were taught the aspects of the Father's face. They came to know, and they were known. They were glorified, and they gave glory. That means you were able to see and understand. This is a test. These things were for you to see and for others as a test. I've been showing them. Some passed, very few. All right, this goes on quite a while here, so I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. Since the perfection of all is in the Father, it is necessary for all to ascend to him. We have to get to the Father. Therefore, if one has knowledge, he gets what belongs to him and draws it to himself. For one who is ignorant is deficient, and it is a great deficiency, since he lacks that which will make him perfect. Since the perfection of all is in the Father, it is necessary for all to ascend to him, for each one to get things that are his. So, I guess the more you learn, the more you get. I don't know. He wrote these things first, having prepared them to be given to those who came from him. Now, again added, the Father calling those who have knowledge. Now, what's the story here? It says, and again, this was added. This is not part of the actual text. Those whose names he knew first were called last, so that the one who has knowledge is one whose name the Father has pronounced. So he's already spoken to them anyway. For one whose name has not been spoken is ignorant. Indeed, how shall one hear if a name has not been uttered? For whoever remains ignorant until the end is a creature of forgetfulness and will perish with it. If this is not so, why have these wretches no names? Why have they no voice? Hence, whoever has knowledge is from above, If called, that person hears. Now this is key. This is important for me to think about for me, because I was called, I can tell you that, no question. It says, if called, that person hears, replies, and turns towards him who called. That person ascends to him and knows how he is called. Having knowledge, that person does the will of him who called, which was to give this, these things were for me to see and for others as a test. It was very, very clear. The person desires to please him, finds rest, and receives a certain name. Those who thus are going to have knowledge know whence they came and whither they are going. They know it as someone who, having become intoxicated, has turned from his drunkenness, and having come to himself, has restored what is his own. All right, so you can go astray, but once you find out the real meaning of things, you should restore it to yourself and don't do it again. I don't think there's too many levels of forgiveness. I think there's just one. All right, again, I'm jumping over a bunch. Now, this is when the Son reveals the word of the Father. Again, added text. The Son appeared, informed them of the Father. This is obviously Jesus, the illimitable one. He inspired them with that which is in the mind while doing his will. Many received the light and turned toward him, but material people were alien to him and did not discern his appearance nor recognize him. These are the people that all they're interested in is money and wealth and fancy this and fancy that. Those are the material people. They were alien to him, did not discern an appearance nor recognize him, for he came in the likeness of flesh. Nothing blocked his way, because what is incorruptible is irresistible. Moreover, while saying new things, speaking about what is in the heart of the Father, he proclaimed the faultless word. Light spoke through his mouth. Again, light, it's always about the light. And his voice brought forth life. He gave them thought and understanding and mercy and salvation and the spirit of strength derived from the infinity and sweetness of the Father. He caused punishments and scourgings to cease. For it was they that caused many in need of mercy to stray from him in error and in chains. And he mightily destroyed them and derided them with knowledge. He became a path for those who went astray, and knowledge for those who were ignorant, a discovery of those who sought, and a support for those who tremble, a purity for those who were defiled. No, he is the shepherd who left behind the 99 sheep and had not strayed, and went in search of the one which was lost. He rejoiced when he had found it, for 99 is the number expressed with the left hand. The moment he finds the one, however, the whole number is transferred to the right hand. Thus it is with him who lacks the one, that is the entire right hand, which attracts that if which is deficient, seizes it from the left side, and transfers it to the right. In this way, the number becomes 100. This is the symbol of the sound of the numbers. It is the Father. That's all kind of hard for me to understand. And a lot of this stuff is, but it all leads back to one thing. You have to leave the thoughts that you had from before and seek God. Look to see what you can find that supports or goes against something. He's saying seek, get the knowledge, get the understanding. Do not be worm-eaten, for you have already shaken it off. Get rid of all that nonsense that was forced on you to say. Look for yourself. Think for yourself. All right, and it goes on and on and on. The place of the blessed. All right, I'm just going to finish it up by this last little paragraph here. It says, such is the place of the blessed. This is their place. As for the others, then, may they know in their place that it does not suit me. So just go away. after having been in the place of rest, to say anything more. It is there I shall dwell in the order to devote myself at all times to the Father of all and the true friends, those upon whom the love of the Father is lavished, and in whose midst nothing of him is lacking. It is they who manifest themselves truly, since they are in that true and eternal life, and speak of the perfect light, always again perfect light, filled with the seed of the Father, which that's his seed, is his light, which is in his heart and in the fullness, while his Spirit rejoices in it, and glorifies him in whom it was. All right? That light is in us, because the Father is good, and his children are perfect and worthy of his name, because he is the Father. Children of this kind are those whom he loves, the ones that can understand the light. That's the way I'm seeing it. They understand, they want truth. They don't shy from the truth. They look, they search, they think. They try to achieve knowledge.